Islam Moors, Islam. Islam Moors, Islam. I started my live, Fatima. Huh? Why are you so loud? You do it on purpose, I swear you do. Islam Moors. Islam Moors. I'm going to wait for a couple of people to jump on, but in the meantime, I'm going to, this is Sharon Tracy Galbay from Moorish National Republic, Federal Government, Northeastern Mexican Territories and Dominions, Supreme Judiciary Member, Consul for the Northeast, Islam. I'm actually coming on this live. It's part 1 of a 2-part session. Might end up being 3 parts, but we'll see. I'm going to try to get it done in 2 parts. It's really hot outside, which is why I am not out there. So I'm going to do it here in front of the camera. Almost didn't do it. The class today is on, even though this is opposite, this is reverse. It is the County Sheriff's Handbook. This information can be downloadable, is downloadable from the website. This particular document is not necessarily up there yet because I haven't placed it up there on the new and improved website. The website is the same address. It is the www.moorishamericanconsulate.org. Again, it's www.moorishamericanconsulate.org. Now, the reasons why I haven't been on live in quite a long time is because I've been working on the website. I've been working on the website as well as other very, very important information as well as curriculums to get established for the Moors so you can be competent in knowing what it is that you are required to know by law as the heirs to the estate as well as for your own edification. Overstand. The only reasons we're in what we're in is because of our lack of knowledge. Our lack of knowledge. And I'm going to read something specifically that points to that. Like I said, all this information is downloaded from the Moorish American Consulate website. It has been updated. It has several sections. Tabs in the top, there's the erudite lessons, which is where everything is going to be, including classes that we give on a weekly basis will be recorded, as well as for the ones that I think are very important will be established or processed or linked to the website. So I tell Moors, study from the website, know everything that you're talking about from the website, because it's going to have all supporting documentation as it relates to the laws, as it relates to your authority, as it relates to the jurisdiction, and everything else. But again, this class today is on the County Sheriff's Handbook. It's the County Sheriff Handbook, and this class specifically is for all Moors subjects, as well as those operating as so-called sheriffs, as well as so-called deputy sheriffs. Understand that all deputy sheriffs are under the authority of the actual sheriff that has been placed in office by their principalities, but their oath of office is based on the County Sheriff's Handbook, as well as the Supreme Laws of the Land, which are also on the website under the Supreme Laws of the Land sections. If you go to the website, you go to the home page, it's going to have a listing of all of the supreme laws that everybody who are operating within the Moroccan Empire, under the Moroccan Empire in the country, are subject to the supreme laws of the land. Ignorance of the law does not give anybody excuse for violating the laws and the rights of the people. And one of the things that I wanted to highlight in a particular document that I was reading prior to reading a document that talks about that talks specifically about the rights and duties of states. The rights and duties of states, and we're going to go over the etymology or the definition of what a state is. So you know exactly what a state is. Islam. It's synonymous to a country, synonymous to a nation, synonymous to, as well as on the website, you'll see the etymology for citizen. What a citizen is, it's not a status, y'all. It's just people who are knowledgeable in the laws of a particular political society or association. So when somebody says they're a citizen, that's saying nothing, okay? You say what nation you belong to as a citizen of. Let's say what nation. I am a Moorish American national, citizens of the Moroccan Empire. So if you want to say something towards that for it to be validated, that would be how you would say it. And there's no such thing as being a United States citizen, because pursuant to Title what? Title 28 U.S.C. subsection 3002, section 15A, terms the United States as a federal corporation. So you can't be a citizen of a federal corporation. People have nationalities. People who are citizens of a nation state. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but I wanted to read something specifically that is why you're going through, why we as a nation are going through the things that we're going through is because we originally were operating outside of our status, outside of our nationality, subjecting ourselves to the corporate states that we are the heirs to, Islam. So what I'm going to read is, realize that the length of this borrowed time, the length of the borrowed time of the unconscious Moor is directly tied to the length of our Moors' ignorance and lack of knowledge of their self, of their history, culture, and what is right and justly ours. We're ignorant towards that fact. A lot of Moors are ignorant towards the realities, and you're being violated and victimized because of that ignorance that we've been party to for over 200 and plus years. Islam. This fact has compelled the so-called white supremacists to do all that is possible to keep the undeclared, mentally comatose Moors from waking up and reclaiming the what rightfully belongs to them, and at the same time to keep rank in subjecting the so-called Europeans from finding out what's really going on. So all the parties that are involved in this are ignorant of the realities, and it is our responsibility as Moors, it is every Moor subject's responsibility to know the laws and operate in like manner. Islam. So I'm doing my due diligence, I'm doing my responsible fiduciary responsibilities, and one, knowing the laws as well as giving you a platform so you will be, it's easier for you to find these things out. So yes, we have an erudite lessons section. It's being updated, like I say, every day. If you have suggestions on things that that should be added, please definitely send an email. All of the contact information is located on the website, along with all of the supporting templates and affidavits that we have established as templates to assist you in processing your lawful authority, as well as gaining knowledge as it relates to filling out affidavit of facts and different things like that. So definitely go to the Moorish American Consulate website. It is www.moorishamericanconsulate.org. Again, you have the processes, every process for the tiers are laid out, as well as the supporting documentation to validate, as well as instructions on completing this. So for nationalities, originally I was letting everybody know that they should send me emails for the documents. Everything is up on the new website. It was launched Friday night. I tweaked it to make sure everything was specifically there that needed to be there. So it's there. Everything is there for you guys. Our court commands and decisions that we've done thus far. Public records. We have public records for the entire corporate territory. With Northeast being the highlighted section, and then we have all of the other sections. So if you want to record your lawful commands on a court of record, because if you are a court of record, you have to be able to produce and establish a court of record. So you have to be able to do that. So as a court of record, we have all our publications, and on the public notifications page, I'm going to probably do this week sometime, maybe for an hour, just how to show you how to navigate the website. But anyway, the public notifications page has everything on there. You would click on the particular corporate territory that you domicile near, and there's a listing of documents for public notifications, from birth records to nationality declarations. If you want to put your nationality documentation on the public records as to you have declared or declared your nationality, allodial land property repossessions, allodium land titles, declaration of your sovereign Moorish trust, just the declaration, y'all. Y'all don't have to put your whole trust. It's only a 3-page document, which is just your indentured, as well as the signature pages that validates that you have established your Moorish sovereign trust. Public notifications of other miscellaneous things, and then obviously the international liens that I've been telling you all about as it relates to when these individuals violate the supreme laws of the land. It's our responsibility to put them back in check, as well as to penalize them for those violations, and that's exactly what a lien is. It is charging them with a violation of the supreme laws of the land as it relates to each individual Moors, or how it relates to Moors as a whole. Islam. And then again, we have the erudite lessons section. The erudite lessons section, I it's still a work in progress, but it has everything on there, subcategorized into 12 different volumes. There's 12 different volumes, and then there's a video section where you could scroll down, and there's videos there. The 3 videos I tell everybody that is very important for you to establish a basis for status and what is the issue in America as it relates to your status and how you identify within this government, within this society. Islam. I wanted also, on a side note, to let you guys know, I also on the homepage put a feature on the Black Codes, that class that was held by House of Reawakening Minds, Dr. G, hosted by Dr. G, and the guest was Grand Sheikh Taj Tariq Bey, who talked about Black Codes of 1724. It was a very great class. I highlighted that on the main page because everybody needs to watch that class. It's a class that'll give you a basis as to why you're being subjected to the things that you're being subjected to, but understand that you are a party to that subjugation because of your ignorance and your willingness to submit yourself to a jurisdiction that does not have any legal authority within the Moroccan Empire, Islam. So he goes over a lot of the Christian Black Codes, as well as the things that we're going through within our own empire, Islam. As like, so volume 1 through 12 on the erudite lessons, I thought was the most essential things that Moors needed to grasp originally. So volume 1 starts with it starts with for newly nationalized Moors. So that's the first section, to give you fundamental documentations as to what you need to be starting to gain knowledge in. The second ones is law and civics. And then I don't want to go through them all because, again, like I said, next week or sometime this week, I'll do a 1-hour video on free conference call, and then I'll upload it onto the website for you to have an idea on how to navigate this. The website is very easy and functional, whereas though I really shouldn't have to do the class, but I'm going to do the class because that's what it is. That's my responsibility, to make sure you know how to navigate the website and pull out the things that you need to pull out for what it is that you particularly might be working on for that particular day. So definitely you want to look out for those things on the website. But today's class that I'm giving, I said I was going to do a class because I haven't done one in a while. It was too hot outside. I didn't want to stand outside and burn up. So that's why I'm sitting here at the desk doing this class on the County Sheriff's Handbook. The County Sheriff's Handbook will be on the website, as well as this class that I'm giving will be in the video section. I'll upload this class onto the YouTube site, as well as put it on the website with the County Sheriff's Handbook. But again, this information is public knowledge, so you can definitely do a Google search and just do County Sheriff's Handbook PDF, and it should come up with no problems. And this is the responsibility of all so-called individuals who claim to be an officers, and who've been so-called duly elected to these particular offices. They have a responsibility and a duty to you. They have a responsibility and a duty to you because you sanction their activities. There's a supreme law section, which will give you within consequential or ascending, I think it's ascending order, the supreme laws of the land. The supreme laws of the land, if I can go to the home page of the website, and if you want to kind of do this while we're on here, everybody go to the website, www.moorishamericanconsulate.org. And if you go to the main site, or if you go to the home page, it should be the first thing that comes up when you hit on to the home page. But the first thing you're going to see is the posting for the House of Reawakening Minds class, as well as the class. Or if you want to go straight to the YouTube channel to watch it on Dr. Nayela Gilliam's platform, definitely I advise that, as well as to subscribe to her channel, because she does a lot of great classes as it relates to getting Moors enlightened, not only spiritually, but knowledge on as it relates to how you are to operate within your own Moroccan Empire, Islam. Because just like I said earlier today, the United States is a corporation, is not a country, so you need to get that out of your head. The United States is a corporation, it is not a country. The United States is a corporation, it is not a company. I'm going to say it one more time. The United States is not a country, it's a corporation. Pursuant to 28 USC, subsection 3002-15A. I'm going to say that again. 28 USC, subsection 3002-15A. You can put that in Google search and it'll take you right to a multitude of different websites that will have that for your edification. So for individuals that think that, oh, the United States is a country, well, you're ignorant to the fact that it's not. It's a corporation. It is a for-profit corporation sanctioned and authorized through the heirs. We originally authorized it and sanctioned it. It is our responsibility to make sure it's operating pursuant to the charter. My question for Moors that are on this platform, what is a charter? What's a charter? Tell me what a charter is, because I'm going to go as slow as I have to go and make sure certain things, certain terms are understood so we don't have misconceptions, Islam. So I'm going to get up real quick and go get my Black's Law 4th edition dictionary, and all the definitions that I will be reading are going to be from the Black's Law 4th edition. Islam, peace and love. Give me 1 second. And I am back. Islam. So, does anybody know what a charter is? Because everybody thinks they know what a charter is. Do you know what a charter is? That's open for the floor if anybody actually wants to participate in today's class, because this is a class. So participate. Islam. A charter is a grant of permission to operate, basically. That is good. I like that. I'm going to enhance that definition with Black's Law, because that is absolutely right. It's somebody that grants authority. But who can grant it? Who can give permission? Who is authorized to give permission? This is just seltzer water, y'all. This is seltzer water with mint in it and lime. This is not alcohol. Seltzer water. This is seltzer water with some mint. Okay? Just letting you know. Charter. Does anybody have the actual definition for charter? Let's look. Why am I not seeing it? Charter. Magna Carta. Charter. I'm not going to mess with y'all today. I'm just going to stay on the facts. A charter, pursuant to Black's Law 4th edition, page 298. Noun. An instrument emanating from a sovereign power. Do I have to continue? Shall I continue? Fatima, shall I continue the definition? She's not saying anything. Maybe she wants me to continue. In the nature of a grant, either to the whole nation or to a class or portion of people or to a colony or dependency, and assuring to them certain rights, liberties, or powers. I'm going to read that again, because some people don't know what a charter is. And if you get charters from corporate states, that means you're subject to those corporate states that gave you that charter, or that you asked for permission with that charter. I'm going to read it again. Charter, a noun. An instrument emanating, which means a document, This is an instrument. A document, a charter, a document. Emanating from the sovereign power. So if somebody's giving you a charter and they don't have no sovereignty, is that a charter? Because a charter comes from a sovereign power, right? Who else could... Would it make sense to get a charter for somebody with a legal disability? No. I'm going to say that again. Does it make sense to get a charter for somebody who's at a Legal Disabilities Act? We've had a class on that, right? We had a class that talked about legal disability. Fatima, do you remember what a legal disability was? Does anybody know what a legal disability is? If you watched my class, you should know what a legal disability is. You do not have the authority to act. You have no authority to own. You have no authority whatsoever. So can you issue charters if you are at a legal disability to do so, considering you are a so-called United States citizen, which pursuant to Title 28 U.S.C. Subsection 3002 15A says that it's a federal corporation. So you're talking about your property of the federal corporation as a resident, as a thing, as property. Am I going to keep going? I am, because this is making me happy, and today I was sad, and I want to be happy. So law makes me happy. Islam. So we talked about a charter, right? Why did we talk? I know, right? Huh? It's not that low. It's not that low, though. Islam. So we got the and the other definition that we had to look up was state, right? Because the document that I'm going to proceed before I read the Sheriff's Handbook, because we're going to take a little bit of time to get into that, is rights and duties of the state. Moors who know and don't just assume or don't believe, tell me what the definition of state is. What is the definition of a state? Corporations can't be a state, just so you know. Definition of a state. I know y'all looking it up. So am I. So don't feel bad about it. You're supposed to look it up. You're supposed to be like, wait a minute, before I misspeak, let me look up the definition of a state and make sure I am to state. There's verbs, which is the action, and then there's the noun, the actual thing, person, place, or thing, right? 8 parts of speech. Abdullah Bey is doing classes. I think those classes start on the 17th of June. So he has postings on his website as well as on his page on classes for etymology, and I encourage everybody to take it. I would be posting some information on the website as it relates to that. It's not there yet, but I will be posting classes on that Abdullah Bey is having that will give you very great understanding as well as how to read, because most of our people don't know how to read, which is the crux of our issue. It's all
state.
So state. What is the definition of a state?
Which one? The verb.
The verb, and you have to inflect your voice. Okay. Read them both. I mean, because the verb is what? The state
express the particulars of a thing in writing or in words. To set down or set forth in detail. To aver, allege, or declare.
Islam. Did everybody hear that? I'm going to repeat it in case you didn't. A state, verb, the action. To express, which is an action. The particulars of a thing in writing or in words. To set down or set forth in detail. To aver, allege, or declare. Now we're talking about inflecting it, right? The action of stating something. Now, the next part will be what? The noun, person, place, or thing. So it'll be what is actually stated in writing. I'm particularly thinking, right? So what is a state? The noun.
Oh, you want me to read it too?
I can do it. You want me to read it? Fatima need her reading glasses. She need her reading glasses.
Out of there, please.
So until she gets her reading glasses, I'm going to read the definition of a state, the noun, the actual person, place, or thing. A people permanently occupying a fixed territory, bound together by common law, habits and customs into one body politic exercising through the medium of an organized government. Through the medium of an organized government. I read that twice. Independent sovereignty and control over all persons and things within its boundaries. Capable of making war and peace and of entering into international relations with other communities in the globe. So my question to you, of all the so-called 50 corporate states, are any of those states?
Yeah.
I want you to answer that, Morse, with either a thumbs down or a thumbs up. A thumbs down means, no, it's not a state. A thumbs up means, it is a state. Which one do you think it is, Morse? This is active participation, because I want you to be paying attention. Is one of the 50 corporate states an actual state? And if it is, tell me why you think it is. And if it's not, tell me why you know it's not. I will open that up to the floor. Y'all lucky y'all ain't got cameras on, because I would point y'all out. I got y'all faces up at the top. I know who it is. See, Fatima, she sit right in front of me, so I can ask her. Thumbs down. Islam, Elijah. Elijah, why thumbs down? It's not a state. Why thumbs down? It's not a state. Thumbs down. Islam, Elijah.
Can I comment?
I'll hurry up, because that dead air and that dead silence is not good for my mental capacity. No, because they are not a people. Absolutely. They are not a people. But more importantly, the definition told you what it was. That organized government, independent sovereignty, and control over the persons. And when we talk about persons, we only talk about the true persons. Person, place, or a thing. They try to fool you with person, place, or a thing, right? So a place or a thing. Like a thing could be a person, which is why they try to get away with the so-called 14th Amendment person. But we're only talking about one person, and that is a man, which is both masculine and feminine energy, y'all. Both male and female. Islam. So don't be thinking just only persons are men. They're also women. Islam. So, all these so-called corporate states are not states. And if they're not states, how can they have jurisdiction over persons? People. They don't. Right? And if all those so-called states signed on to the Constitution, what is that telling you? What is that telling you? My point I'm trying to say is, let me put the disclaimer up. The Constitution, the treaty, is not talking about people. It's talking about corporations because it's a commercial agreement between nations, right? And why did the so-called United States get established? What was the purpose of that? Do you realize it was a commercial agreement between individuals who did not have sovereignty to give them authority commercially only? Do you understand? And that Constitution, which is a trust indentured, a contract between two people, is the law. Nothing outside of that is withstanding, because we only gave a specific level of authority and nothing more, and it was only commercially. So more, stop identifying as property, and you will be fine. And stop thinking that that Constitution you are subject to. You are not. And I think you need to understand that. You need to understand that the treaty is talking about what? What is the treaty talking about? Commercial agreements, right? It's like, these are our protections. So whenever we have intercourse, and we're not talking about sex, whenever we have intercourse, maybe we need to read the definition of intercourse. I think I'll go to it.
Oh, goodness.
I don't want you thinking Sharon got the potty mouth. I don't. I just know what words mean and what they don't. Intercourse. They might not even have it in here because they're like, look, I ain't nobody gonna be messing with me talking about intercourse. Intercourse.
Sonny, do not drop that on the floor.
Intercourse is not in the Black's Law Dictionary. It's not here.
Let's do the college bound.
You're gonna have to look in an older dictionary.
I got one.
It's long.
American Heritage.
Now, you know, when you go on Google, it's gonna say a whole bunch of stuff. It might even come up with some bad stuff. So watch how you put that in Google. All right. Oh goodness. Oh goodness. Okay, here's the better one. You had to go down to the third one, right? Connection or dealings between persons or groups. That was the most positive. Most people are nice. Yes, they are. But don't say that. Yes. Connection. Intercourse is a connection or dealings between persons or groups. Now here's the question. Was intercourse ever really supposed to be looked at as a... I ain't even going there. Intercourse is connection or dealings between persons or groups. That could be a multitude of different connections. Islam. So we got that, and we got a state, right? So now we're going to go to rights and duties of a state, right? So we can always recognize it said fixed territory, right? Does the corporate state have any actual territorial jurisdiction? That's open to the floor. Does a corporate state have territorial jurisdiction? We already talked about
no, it does not.
Exactly, it doesn't. Because what the first thing you try to establish when you go to a tribunal, when you're forced to go there under threat, duress, or coercion, because a lot of their agents are not competent or knowledgeable in the laws, but that does not give them the right to violate you. And earlier today we talked about, or I posted on the platform, which is also available on the website again, for essential case law. Okay, so Mustafa said that is because treaty issues are outside of a municipality's jurisdiction to deal with. Treaty issues are handled on the federal level, Muslim Islam. Right. And what law talks about the treaty, right? But if we're talking about corporate states, when we talk about tribunals, they're not even supposed to be existing. Right? Who do they have jurisdiction over? They're not even supposed to have jurisdiction over the Albion or the immigrant. Because those are more subject to jure as well.
Yes.
So all those venues
They
are
only have jurisdiction over commercial dealings. They only have jurisdiction over commercial.
They only have jurisdiction over commercial dealings, but don't they have to produce that commercial dealings via contract for the record before they can even send out a summons?
Yes.
So before they should send out a summons, they're supposed to hold that so-called claim that's been filed up to the scrutiny of law. That is what a so-called judge is supposed to be doing. And we're talking about at the clerk's office, because before the so-called administrator acting like a judge, administrator acting like a judge, the clerk administrator, they're all administrators. They're supposed to validate whether this individual has a lawful and legal contract, as well as if they are within the jurisdiction of the specific court. Because we got the 3 jurisdictional challenges, right? So even if the tribunal has jurisdiction over, let's say, contracts, they have to have jurisdiction over the person as well for them to even act upon it.
Yep. And
right?
You can't have jurisdiction over a person.
And you can't have jurisdiction over a person,
unless it is given to
And
them.
even if Fatima said, unless it is given. But law says otherwise. Court case law says otherwise. You can't submit to jurisdiction. You can't even consent to it.
Nope.
That's what the law says. The law says jurisdiction cannot be waived by either party. That's the one. That's the plaintiff as well as the so-called respondent, who they want to call a defendant.
It's not.
So they don't have jurisdiction either way. Why do they keep adjudicating? Because they know you are outside of outside of the forms of law because of your status that you have not placed on the record through your plea. And I'm not talking about the 3 pleas that they try to get you to submit to: guilty, not guilty, or what's the other one? Guilty or not guilty, right? That's submitting. That's automatically submitting that you did something wrong and that you're within the jurisdiction. But what about the so-called plea, which is just the answer to the criminal complaint, which is your affidavit of fact? Law. I'm talking actual law. Islam? Okay. So I read 4 court cases, and I'm going to go to the website because I read 4 court cases. They were under the erudite lessons section. They're under the erudite lesson. I can't even talk. They're under the erudite lessons section. Let me go to. I don't know why it keeps popping me out of where I'm trying to be.
No contest.
Yes, they have no contest where you're not pleading guilty or not guilty. You're just not contesting, so-called contesting to the actual charges, which doesn't really exist. The reality is either you have jurisdiction and I'm either guilty or I'm not guilty of what I'm being charged with. And the reality is there such thing as a no contest plea? How and why would I actually not be able to say yay or nay? I either did it or I didn't.
Yep.
I either did it or I didn't, or you don't have jurisdiction to determine which one either way. Right? So if you go to the website under the erudite lessons and you go all the way down to stare decisive cases, which is the section that we're talking about as it relates to what we're talking about. There's 4 stare decisive cases. I put a multitude of them up there, but there was 4 of them up there. I just highlighted them. The actual cases will come later when I feel like putting all of that information up here, because I've been working on this website, like I said, for a long time. But it's Colander versus Lawson. And this is for Moors that are currently dealing with highwaymen and robbers and terrorists, because they're outside of law, so they're terrorizing the people. They're terrorizing the people with their fictitious authority, which they know they don't have.
I.S.L.A.M.
Colander versus Lawson. There is no such thing as failure to identify. Case law. Stare decisive case law is what? Law. State versus Robinson. An illegal arrest is an assault and battery. So by them talking to you and detaining you, they've caused injury upon you, which you can seek remedy for, which is why we always tell you, Moors, lien them. That is your responsibility to lien them, because they're violating the laws. Firstly, by putting the complaint in, and the complaint on its face is what? I'll read the statute it's violating. When they sit here and call you a Negro, colored, and black, when you stated for the record who you were, when you also talked about I have console notification access, as well as the fact that they're trying to act like they have jurisdiction, even though you've stated for the record that you are a foreign national outside of the jurisdiction of that particular municipality, city, state, corporate jurisdiction. Because consent cannot be waived, even if it's unknown that that's what you are. But of course, they're going to violate you because you don't know the recourse to stop them from doing that. So what is the code which they are in violation of by putting on their criminal complaint or affidavit, their so-called affidavit of fact, talking about you being a black man or a black woman, and having a name which denotes the property of their corporate state? It's treason, which is 18 U.S.C. subsection 2381. Misprision of treason, which is subsection 2382. There's so many other ones that I haven't even put on here. As well as, where is it at? Statements or entries generally. 18 U.S.C. subsection 1001. And I actually have this one in there. And I'm going to read it to you. Just a couple of sentences. It's all you really need. It says what? Where is it, yo? Where is it, yo? I hate when I can't find things.
Come on now. Don't go down that rabbit hole.
Statements or entries generally. Except as otherwise provided in this section, whoever in any material, in any matter within the jurisdiction of the executive, legislative, or judicial branch of the government of the United States, knowingly and willingly falsifies, conceals, or covers up by any trick, scheme, or device a material fact. What are they covering up in that first section? They're covering up the fact that you're a Moorish American national and not a black person by putting in the record that you're black and that you have a name. That was the first violation.
Islam.
Number 2, makes or use any false writings or documents knowing the same to contain any materially false, fictitious, or fraudulent statements or entries. Did they do that to you? These policy enforcers that are ignorant toward the law, which is why we're having this class today. And you need this arsenal. You need these weapons. So when you are violated by a highwayman who's in violation of the Hobbs Act, who's in violation of all of the codes and statutes, which is why you should be leaning them first in their official capacity and then in their private capacity. Meaning you need to find out where they're located, and you need to lean them to stop them from acting against not only them, but you. Because the violations that they're steeping upon them is not just subject to them. It's subject to their wives. It's subject to their children and their heirs.
Yes.
So they need to know what they're stepping into prior to them violating you. As soon as they so-called pull you over, the only thing you should be saying is, I'm a Moorish American national and you're in violation of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship and Consul Notification and Access. That's the first thing. And I have Consul Notification Access. Which means you're outside your jurisdiction. When you say you're a Moorish American national, foreign, you're outside their jurisdiction. Which is why they ask their 3 questions. What are the 3 questions that they ask? License, registration, proof of insurance. What is that license? What else do they ask? What's your name? Birth date? Resident? They ask you these things. What are you supposed to say before they even start with their nonsense? I'm a Moorish American national. Why'd you pull me over? Is there some sort of emergency?
Your lights were flashing.
Because your lights were flashing. And they're only supposed to be flashing in the midst of an emergency.
As per their codes.
As per your codes. Now say they ask you, you don't have active registration. What are you supposed to say? Who gave you permission to run the tags on this vehicle? You don't have no warrant. You're not supposed to. That was a violation of my constitutional rights. They don't have the right to run anything on your vehicle. They have to get permission for everything they do, which is why they're supposed to always have a warrant. Because what is the warrant supposed to say pursuant to the Constitution? Now we're talking about property. We went back to property, y'all. Constitution says what they can do to property. You're not property, babies. You're protected by the treaty as a foreign national outside their jurisdiction. And pursuant to the Hobbs Act, Fatima, give us some enlightenment on the Hobbs Act. I don't want to be too generic with it, which they're subject to. They're not supposed to go how many feet? See, she'll be back with the Hobbs Act. Do some research on the Hobbs Act. They're going far beyond their jurisdiction. Fatima, can't nobody hear you. Islam. So we talked about what they're in violation of. You're in violation of 18 USC subsection 1001. Statements and entries generally. You falsified the documents so you could have a charge, which is a violation. Every so-called charge, every so-called summon is them trying to place a lien on you in your estate. Your estate. They're liening your estate. When they pull you over, they're pulling over property, and they're trying to get access to your estate by filing a charge against you as if you are that property. Right? And Fatima said they are not allowed to be out 12 miles from which they work. So if their district is on Front Street or First Street, let's say their jurisdiction, their district is on Front or on First Street, they can't go beyond 12th Street. They're outside their so-called jurisdiction. All right? That's the Hobbs Act. I'll find it, post it, and put it on the website. Like I said, everything is going to be available on the website for you to have and know everything that we're saying is in alignment with the law. Islam? And then there was this one, 18 USC subsection 1446. There's one part of this that I wanted to read. It might be this part. No, that's the procedures. I wanted to read subsection 1441. And subsection 1441 says, oh goodness, change in venue. I'm not going to, no, I went to the wrong one. Sorry, 1441. There we go. Removal of civil actions. And Moorish, y'all got to understand. They try to make it seem like they're holding you for criminal charges. They're holding you under civil actions. They're all civil actions. Why are they civil actions? Because there is no criminal activity. There's only two things you can be criminally held liable for. And that is for physically wounding an individual or killing them. Pursuant to the treaty. Those are only two. Only two criminal offenses. Everything else is civil. Everything else is civil. So when they sit here and say you were trespassing, that's a civil complaint. When they sit here and try to tell you we're jaywalking, that's a civil complaint. When they try to sit here and say that you are under arrest for the use of marijuana or any other so-called illicit drug, that is a civil complaint based on a statute which is non-binding. Because it's notwithstanding because it violates the Constitution. Islam? But always realize when we're talking about the Constitution and we're talking about the treaty, we're talking about property. We're talking about commercial agreements. We're talking about commercial contracts. You have not signed, Moors, you have not signed anything validating authority of them under any constitution, right? What I'm saying is you never agreed to be their property. You never agreed to be their property. You never agreed to be their property through any contractual obligation or agreement that they can produce for the record. Because for them to sit here and say they have jurisdiction over the body, the person, they have to validate that status. They have to validate that jurisdiction with submitting evidence within the record. And of course they're not going to do that because they can't, because they don't have jurisdiction over you, the person. They're trying to get you to stay confused as to what person they're talking about. One exists. One is in the figment of your imagination. One exists. One is in the figment of your imagination. The so-called ens legis is your estate that they're trying to move and navigate without your acknowledgement. And sometimes they got to bring you in to sign off on some stuff because they don't have authority outside of your willful submission. Islam? Islam.
It's so funny. Here you go. Pop that.
Oh, the how? You want me to read it?
Just read the first thing.
The first paragraph?
Yes.
Islam. It is Hobbs Act 2402, Hobbs Act generally. And this is on the Department of Justice's website, justice.gov. The Hobbs Act prohibits actual or attempted robbery or extortion affecting interstate or foreign commerce in any way or degree. Section 1951 also provides or prescribes conspiracy to commit robbery or extortion without reference to the conspiracy statement or statute at 18 U.S.C. 371. That's on the website. I don't have it uploaded yet. The statutory prohibition of physical violence to any person or property in furtherance of any plan or purpose to do anything in violation of this section is confined to violence for the purpose of committing robbery or extortion. That's exactly what they're doing. United States versus Franks. Rejecting the view that the statute prohibits all physical violence, obstructing, delaying, or affecting commerce as contrasted with violence designated to culminate or in robbery or extortion. I don't want to read the whole thing.
There's one more that talks about sovereigns.
The extortion offense reaches both the obtaining of property under color of office right by public officials and the obtaining of property by private actors with the victim's consent induced by wrongful use of actual or threatened force, violence, or fear, including fear of economic harm. See this in manual at 2405. I'm going to post this on the website for y'all about Moorish. Only private individuals' extortion of property by the wrongful use of force, violence, or fear requires that the victim's consent be induced by these means. Extortion of property under color of office of official right does not require that a public office official take steps to induce the extortionate payment. Just the fact that you're saying that you're a so-called officer, that you're working for the government, that I or you are in violation of a statute. Although the Hobbs Act was enacted in 1946 to combat racketeering in labor management disputes, the extortion statute is frequently used in connection with cases involving public corruption, commercial disputes, and corruption directed at members of labor unions. Proof of racketeering is an element of Hobbs Act offenses is not required. However, a violation of the Hobbs Act may be part of a pattern of racketeering activity for purpose of extortion or prosecution under the Racketeering Influence and Corruption Organization called RICO statute. That's under 18 U.S.C. Subsection 1961. And like I said, all these will be available in the erudite lesson section under stare decisis and case law.
And once you get that, go to the website and actually get the Hobbs Act Handbook. And you'll learn inside of there that they only are allowed to go out 12 miles.
And I will do the research and get that particular information, and I will post that. And if we need to have another class to talk about the Hobbs Act, so all of these people understand their lack of response, their lack of duty, and their breach of duty and authority pursuant to the treaties and the supreme laws that they're violating. And initially, our affidavits of fact was to get them to stop doing all of their fraudulent activities. But we absolutely know why they're doing it. We'll have a class on that as well. But I have to give you steps, Islam, because it's a lot of information to contain. But once to establish as well as to know. But once you get to that point, you'll be definitely be able to understand it. Islam. So rights and duties of states enter America. This was done in a convention back in 1933 more. So I'm just going to let you know, just like Prophet Noble Drew Ali has stated in a lot of his documents, he's like Moors. He said specifically, what did he say specifically? If I can find it. He knew that, he knew Noble Drew Ali knew that the time of our resurrection, the Moors, had not come, and knew that his days were numbered, right? In fact, Noble Drew Ali stated, it will take you Moors 50 years to figure out what I have done to help liberate you. What I have done is not for you Moors, but for the third and fourth generation from now. We're there, y'all. We're that generation. We're that fourth generation. Because he said third or fourth. He was like, yo, it might not be the third. It might take to the fourth. We that fourth. I think we might even be the fifth. Let's do the work. 33. This was back in what? 33. So every 25 years, that's a generation, right? So 50 years is 2 generations. That was 83. Was that 83? That was 2 generations, 83. And then another 2 generations was what? 50 more? Where we at? But we third generation. Maybe we are third generation. 75 years? Are we third generation? Come on, somebody got the calculator? I gotta get the calculator too? Goodness, y'all drawing.
1933.
1933 plus 75. That was 2008, yo. Another 25 years? We third generation. We are the third generation. So aren't we happy that we're on the right track at the third generation and it didn't take the fourth? Third generation. We're in the middle of that. Going into the fourth. Islam. Just overstand. Oh God, I can't go there. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole, y'all. I'm not going to do it. So we are that third generation that he did over 75 years ago. Moors wouldn't understand what he was doing then. And a lot of our people don't understand now.
No.
Okay? Which is probably why he said around the third, fourth generation. I don't know. Tomatoes. Islam. So the rights and duties of states. Do I have to read that, or do y'all want to go straight into the county sheriffs? Yeah, I want to go straight into the county sheriffs. So I'll save that. It's going to be on the website. It's probably already there. I do so much in one day. I can't believe myself. It's ridiculous. Islam. So now we're just going to be reading. And I know how y'all like to fall asleep when people's just reading, which is why I like to have other things in here. Islam. The county sheriff's handbook, and this part of this training class is for all Moors subjects operating at Morocco. It is for everyone to know what the laws are, specifically anybody operating as a sheriff or deputy sheriff under the sheriff. It's for all of you. You have a responsibility. Whatever illegal activities that you were partaking in prior to, your ignorance does not absolve you, which is why we lean all the so-called sheriff's departments, because we're going to get you out your corporate activity and put you in de jure because you're operating outside of the fact. Because like when Moors contact you, it is your responsibility. This is a civil. What's the excuse they give for not assisting sheriffs? What's the number one excuse they give for not assisting? What do they say? Fatima? What are one of the things? I can't even think of the darn right now. They sit here and say this is a civil dispute. Is that what they say?
Oh, you're going to have to take it to the courts. I can't help you right now.
But they're over the courts. They don't know they're over the courts? Are you serious? I'm going to tell you why they're over the courts through this county sheriff's handbook. Why they absolutely know what their responsibilities are, and they're turning a blind eye to it. Which is why you have to lean them on the first instance to let them know that you gave them authority because you can lean them and they can't do anything about the liens. The purpose of this pocket handbook is to fully inform the American county sheriffs, deputies, and bailiffs as to their authority in the law. This handbook is an endeavor to consciously, concisely, and completely cover the aforesaid in a topical style to make it easy for reference. We also created a website, which is where I got this document. The Constitution for the United States of America, Article 6. The senators and representatives before mentioned and the members of the several state legislatures and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. Sheriffs are judicial officers. Islam? Why are sheriffs judicial officers? Can anybody answer that? Does anybody know why the sheriffs are judicial officers? I'll get 2 seconds and then I'm just going to go. Sheriff's oath. I hereby do solemnly swear that I will support and defend this Constitution for the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, to help me God. So help me God. And God is what? Government ordinances and departments, right? Mm-hmm. So help me God. That's what they're talking about. They ain't talking about nobody up in the sky. I just want you to know that. Because of the Constitution, it's a more specific. Yes, the Constitution gives them authority, but who elects them? We do, the people. We're going to talk about that as well later. Can't cover everything in one sitting. The law of the land consists of what? The law of the land consists of what? The people. We the people. Islam. Then that's right. Constitution was written by the people under the authority of what? God, government ordinances and departments, to empower, control, and restrict government servants. So we established the Constitution for what? Government servants, right? How they're supposed to act in office. How they switch that around and act like that was supposed to be on you. That's interesting. Don't you think that's interesting? Number 2, common law, which is written by God in the hearts of men. And number 3, constitutional statutes, which are written by legislators. Any statute or code outside of the aforesaid, and there are many, are null and void. And that is why we need a constitutional law protectors who knows the difference. That's what the so-called sheriff's supposed to be. If a sheriff must depend upon a lawyer to determine the law, which is what they are doing now, it is no different than giving he or she a badge and the responsibility for your oath, which means sheriffs and deputy sheriffs and everybody under them claiming to be so-called law enforcement are all therefore subject and under the authority of what? Sheriff, right? Absolutely. The sheriff is the supreme law enforcer of the county. They're over every so-called police department. So why do they act like they not? Why do they act like they don't rule over them as well as the so-called courts and the activity within the courts? But I digress. I'm going to continue reading. That is not honoring your oath. Lawyers already run our government and have the people racketeered down in unconstitutional code statutes and illegal warrants. Therefore, therein is the problem in a nutshell. Islam? In order for statutes to become law, the legislator must first be given authority by the people, which is found under Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, which is restrained by Article 1, Section 9 in the Bill of Rights.
Start them again.
This is where the sheriff's attention should be. If Congress writes statutes outside of Article 1, Section 8, or statutes that violate Section 9, in or the Bill of Rights, the following general rule of the United States Supreme Court is to be applied, and herein is the power of the county sheriff. The general rule is that an unconstitutional statute, though having the form and name of law, is in reality no law, but is wholly void and ineffective for any purpose, since its unconstitutionality dates from the time of its enactment. In legal contemplation, it is an inoperative as if it had never been passed. Since an unconstitutional law is void, the general principles follow that it imposes no duties, confers no rights, creates no office, bestows no power or authority on anyone, affords no protection, and justifies no acts performed under it. A void act cannot be legally consistent with a valid one. An unconstitutional law cannot operate to supersede any existing law. Indeed, insofar as a statute runs counter to the fundamental laws of the land, the Constitution, it is superseded thereby. No one is bound to obey an unconstitutional law, and no courts are bound to enforce it. That's Bennett versus Valier, and another multitude of laws. So they're effectually doing what? By following these unlawful codes and statutes and ordinances of the so-called county, from the so-called General Assembly, the so-called legislators, right? So these so-called legislators have enacted all of these statutes, right, that are in violation of the Constitution for the United States of America, right? So they're notwithstanding. So they're unenforceable, but you have individuals enforcing it. Do they have the right to? No. Shall they be doing it? No. What is your recourse? We don't tell you to do the liens just because we want to lien everybody. We have to lien those violators of the law in their corporate capacity and their private capacity, which is one and the same. It's the same. We give them due process by letting them know what laws they're violating through our lawful affidavit of facts. Mm-hmm. So whenever they come to your domicile or come and try to stop you and do all of these things, it is your responsibility to hold them accountable for violating it.
Yes, Lord.
If a nation expects to be ignorant and free, it expects what never was and never will be. How you can expect to be free when you're ignorant of the laws that support your freedom? You can't claim to be free when you don't know the laws that substantiate and validates that status and standing. Oh, I want to be free, but yet I don't know how. I don't know the laws that guarantee me that freedom. The county sheriff also has a duty to enforce the common law which is written by God in the hearts of men. There are two common law principles that guide us in knowing the common law. One, in order for there to be a crime, there must be an injured party, and the government in general cannot be an injured party.
There you go.
I'm going to read it again.
To resistance, right there.
There are two common law principles that guide us in knowing the common law. In order for there to be a crime, there must be an injured party, and the government in general cannot be an injured party. And when we talk about government, it's lowercase, y'all. It's lowercase, y'all, because it's not the government. And what are they in violation of? Oh, did I read that earlier? Oh, where did I say that at? Deprivations of rights under color of law, 18 U.S.C. subsection 242 and 241. Conspiracy against rights. Then we got 18 U.S.C. subsections 371. Conspiracy to commit offenses or to defraud the United States.
There you go.
They're defrauding the United States by claiming to be an official of one.
There you go.
They're in violation of those three. That's the first three that I have on the website. First three. I didn't even read the rest. In order for there to be a crime, I'm going to read it again because I think y'all didn't get it. In order for there to be a crime, there must be an injured party, and the government cannot be an injured party. Here's the crux of the issue. In all these so-called criminal complaints, these libels, which are statements that are wrong and fraudulent and against your good so-called name, which is what a libel is. Who's the so-called plaintiff in all those claims?
The state of...
That ain't even a state. We just told you what a state is. They're not sovereign. They can't be a state. They ain't even people.
Shit.
They're at a legal disability. So what's a state? We already talked about it. Ain't going over it again. But how can a so-called corporate state be a party? And they wasn't even, how they a party? What constitutes a party? How can they file a complaint? They only exist on paper. And I know in a lot of our affidavits, that's in there.
Sure enough it is.
Are they ignoring that?
Yes, they are.
Taj talked about that in his class last night. Or was it last night? Yeah. No, the night before last. Friday night. Watch that class on House of Reawakening Minds. It was called Christian Black Codes.
Yes.
Talking about what you're actually being subjected to, which is where all these so-called statutes come from. Because you're at a legal disability and you haven't corrected your status for the record or stated who you are for the record. Number 2, for every injury there must be a remedy. Mm-hmm. This is the simplicity of God's law. Do not kill, do not steal, do not injure, do not trespass, etc. We all know this. What separates the sheriff from the police is the fact that police are code enforcement officers that answer to a political servant who has the power to fire. And if the political servant is lawless, so are the police. Whereas the sheriffs are law enforcement officers that answer to the people directly at the ballot box. Therefore, the sheriff will be as lawful as his knowledge of the same, which is why this class is being given, because I know they watch our platform. Mm-hmm. There are only 3 ways a sheriff can be removed from office.
We got one.
The people can vote him out.
Mm-hmm.
Impeachment.
Mm-hmm.
Indictment by grand jury.
Mm-hmm.
One's not being stated there. How will we impeach him? How can we vote him out? And how can we indict him? You can vote him out by popular demand. Impeach him for his violations of the law. An indictment for those things for which we impeached him for, which was the laws that he violated. Ignorance of the law does not give anybody excuse to trespass against it. Islam? There are 4 things the sheriff needs in order to arrest a lawless judge or any lawless elected or appointed servant with impunity and fearlessness. They are: 1, knowledge of the law; 2, knowledge that no agency or elected or appointed servant can remove a sheriff from office, nor can a sheriff be arrested unless he violates the common law, such as stealing or killing, etc., the people standing behind him, and access to the grand jury to get an indictment. The sheriffs should not be going to the county prosecutors for an indictment, as all too often they are gatekeepers for the lawlessness.
Hold on.
What?
Adam Bay says, but the sheriff can't arrest the fake judges. But they can.
Absolutely they can. They are the top law enforcement agency of that county. So the better question you need to ask yourself is where they're supposed to go. Who is supposed to assist them? I know the answer to that. Do you know the answer to that? Because they're law enforcement. What branch of government should they seek for assistance? I'll wait. Mm-hmm. They should be going to what? The United States Attorney General. With those complaints, with those violations, because they get them. When they get the order, the so-called, we're going to get into this. I ain't really want to go there, so I'm going to wait till we get there. It is imperative that the sheriff have the active support of the people. The best place for the sheriff to find that is in locally organized citizens and liberty groups. Go out and talk to them. We have talked to you. We're done talking. Sheriffs should keep their eyes out for committees of safety. So this gives you a little bit of information on what the sheriffs can do. The people have your back because the people that only matter are the Moors. They're the only people in the Moorish subjects that have status corrections, and they're not oathly and duty bound to this corporate state, which is just by you naturalizing. Because that's what you would be doing, technically, if we want to use that term. I don't like using it. That's why you're a Moorish subject, Ipso Jure. Automatic. You don't even need no paperwork to validate that status. You already are that at law. Sheriffs need to have a proper education and the support of their other properly educated sheriffs standing with them, and if necessary, an armed posse, especially if they are going up against a federal or state agency or lawlessness government servants. Who has the sheriff's back?
Like a 5-second delay.
Most importantly, the sheriff must have grand jury access. The sheriff has been around for over 100 years, like the coroner, has always had direct access to the grand jury without a monitor. The only purpose of a gatekeeper is to protect the guilty. And the only reason they can get away with having all-powerful gatekeepers is because the sheriffs and the people's ignorance of the laws of the land. And that's truth. We have a lot of people who are ignorant, and the sheriffs are one of them. Just because they are just because there are lawful rules and statutes that provide for prosecutors to call the grand jury, which is necessary to empower them to do so, it doesn't negate the power and authority that the sheriff and the coroner have always had and still have the authority to call the grand jury themselves. The major problem with prosecutors is that they think that they get an indictment They have the power to add or remove charges and make deals. Only the grand jury can add or remove charges and make deals with the accused. Why do you think whenever they so-called charge Moors under Negro Code of Black, they don't do no indictments? That's a violation of the Constitution right there. You have to have an indictment from a grand jury because they're giving you the authority to arrest. The people are giving you the authority. And they have this checks and balance because servants have to be monitored. And there has to be checks and balances to make sure they're doing what the people told them to do. And not what they wanted to do on their own. Which is why all the so-called charges are without any so-called indictment. But by that very admission is in violation of the Constitution. Because you're supposed to have an indictment by a grand jury. And the grand jury are people who come together based on the evidence that you've supported in your affidavit, as well as based on witnesses and different things that come up through that indictment, will make a decision whether or not you have enough evidence and if you are within the law for that indictment. So you can charge that person. And they have that in place so so-called agencies don't go rogue thinking they can do whatever they want without checks and balances. But at the end of the day, it's the sheriff's responsibility to make sure that's being done. And all the so-called deputies under his tutelage.
Saying all this does not mean that the sheriff can go on and make his own documentation and put it in the record.
Say that one more time.
Saying all that we're saying does not give the sheriff the right to go into documentation and put things on the record falsely.
Yes. The sheriff cannot put any false documents on the record. They are there as a check and balance. The sheriff's department, which should be the very first office you see when you go into those buildings, it's supposed to be right in the beginning of the building. So it shows you who's the authority there, even if they're not wielding it, right? Their responsibility is to make sure everything that comes in that so-called, every complaint that comes or so-called seizurement or warrant is valid. And stands up to the Constitution. That's why they're constitutional officers. That's why they're elected by the people, because they're supposed to be knowledgeable in the law. And that is what they're supposed to be upholding, the law. And when you call yourself something, you automatically have that title and you're held to those responsibilities by calling yourself that. And when you take the oaths, right? The sheriff should always know when the grand jury is in session so that if he or she wants to ask the people for an indictment against the judge, some other elected or appointed official, or maybe even the prosecutor, the sheriff can go to the court and talk to the grand jury directly. He need not explain himself to anyone and if necessary and can arrest anyone who gets in his way for obstruction of justice. Once the sheriff gets an indictment, the prosecutor cannot reduce or change the charge because that's a crime. So what is this telling you? The people determine who gets charged and who doesn't, not the prosecutor, not the so-called judge, not a so-called policy enforcer. All these people have been involved in this action and they're not involved. They have no authority in those actions, right? This is telling you a lot. So when the so-called sheriff's department gets a warrant, or even the police department, when they get a warrant, they're supposed to make sure it was by a duly authorized body and it was sanctioned by an indictment from the grand jury. It'll talk about all of that. What did I say earlier?
Download Miko. She says BS. They hypothecate.
Wait a minute, let me finish. Wait a minute. State versus Robinson. An illegal arrest is an assault and battery. So all these so-called law enforcement officers or policy enforcers or agents are all in violation of illegal arrests all over this country. Which is why we tell you when you want to put your notice of removals in, what you must do before that is lien the police department, the county, and the sheriff's department. You're supposed to be leaning them because they should never let that go down. They should have as soon as the so-called sheriff, as well as the policy enforcers, the lieutenants, the superintendents, as soon as they got those so-called warrants, they should have made sure they were valid. And if they didn't know if they were valid, they should have contacted the sheriff's department to validate it. They are under the sheriff's department. Why are they under the sheriff's department? Because he's elected, they're not. They're given, they're appointed through a enrollment, or what you call it, a job application. They are subject to the sheriff automatically. So whenever a so-called sheriff comes on scene, he is the authority there.
Yep.
Period, point blank. And they need to know that that's where the authority lies. It does not lie in any so-called policy enforcement, because they are not elected officials. The people did not elect them to do anything. Therefore, they're unlawful when they go into certain venues and perform certain actions and activities. One single object will merit the endless gratitude of society that are restraining the judge from usurping legislation. The government will certainly decide for itself on whose counsel they will settle the construction of the laws they are to execute. We are to look at the intentions of the legislature and to carry into execution while the lawyers are nibbling at the words of the law. Sheriffs, whether they be a Democrat or Republican, liberal or conservative, should not indulge in party favors. Only the laws, that's your oath. This comprehensive handbook was written to fully inform the sheriffs and deputies of their powers and authorities that they took an oath to perform, thereby supporting and defending the Constitution for the United States of America. For a higher education, read the handbook. This is part of the instructuses. This is part of the instructuses after we lean all the sheriff's departments of all the so-called corporate states because of their violations of the constitutional oaths that they've taken as so-called elected officials. Islam? Duty of the county sheriff. The sheriff is to support and defend the law of the land, aka the Constitution, and the laws of nature's God, aka common laws, by which the former is vested via the people who are invested by the latter, not legislative bodies. So when we talk about the Constitution, we also talk about the treaties, because the treaties is in Constitution pursuant to Article what? 6, right? So we're automatically talking about the treaties. The treaties supersede the Treaty of Peace and Friendship with the Moors, supersedes every other constitution as well as agreement, because it superseded all of them. It was here before the Constitution was here. The Treaty of Peace and Friendship preceded the Constitution, which makes the treaty the supreme laws of the land as it relates to Moorish nationals. Islam? So they are held to that because of the Constitution agreements and the oaths they took to the Constitution. They automatically took an oath to the treaty, y'all. We are a nation governed by the common laws of God, which makes all laws superior and more just than any other nation's law. Therefore, the oath of the county sheriffs is a sacred oath, which, when violated, is a direct assault upon the God, which judgment will not rest forever. Thomas Jefferson professed America's covenant between God and we the people when he penned the following. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal stations to which the law of nature and the law of gods entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. All your affidavit of facts. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are rights of liberty and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, depriving their just power from the consent of the governed. They derive their just power by the consent of the governed. It's the people who sanction their activity, not the other way around. Islam? So that's why you have to consent to everything that happens to you. And you cannot give consent contractually if it's under threat, duress, and coercion. Islam? Sheriffs in the court. The court belongs to the sovereign people. The United States Supreme Court defines courts as what? An agency of the sovereign, the people, created by the people, directly or indirectly under its people's authority, consisting of one or more officers, magistrate, sheriff, coroner, and prosecutor. Established and maintained for the purpose of hearing and determining issues of law, in fact, regarding legal rights, alleged violations thereof, and of applying the sanctions of the law. Authorized to exercise its powers in the course of law at times and places previously determined by law's authority. State and county courts are courts of record. In some cases, okay, so if they're a court of record, why they ain't recording your documents? If they want to sit here and charge you with an offense, why are now they're not allowing you to record those documents to that record? If they're a court of record. In some cases, city courts are courts of record. For instance, the New York City courts or courts of record, but all other city courts in New York State are not courts of record. To determine or to find out what courts are courts of record, look in your so-called state constitution, which will list these courts.
There you go.
All other courts are called nisi-prius courts. Prius courts. Nisi-prius courts, also called administrative courts. These courts are not courts of record. Unless your state constitution says directly all city, county, states, and village courts are not a court of record. They are not a court of record. And what does that mean? The dictionary, Bouvier's dictionary, defines nisi-prius courts as where courts bearing this name exist in the United States. They are instituted by statutory provisions, not constitutional. So here's the answer. Now, I always say you can go with how they act and what they litigate, right? What are these courts litigating? Statutes or constitutional rights?
Statutes.
So if they're litigating statutes, and the whole charge that you're in there for is a statute, not a law violation, then are they a court of record or a nisi-prius court?
A nisi-prius court.
So they're a nisi-prius court because they're not actually courts of law.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not actually courts of law because they promote statutes, which is in a violation of the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
The very fact that they try to put a attorney on you is another fact that they are a nisi-prius court. Because if they're a court of law, they would not tell you have to have an attorney, because that's a violation of the law. And why is that a violation of the law, Morris? What does it say in the Constitution? You have a right to what? Don't say it. Morris, what does it say? You have a right to what? In the Constitution. And where is it stated? It might have this next. I don't know. It might. They're going to make me say it. Y'all get on my nerves. I'm just going to say it.
You told me not to say it. So.
I told you not to say it. You're right. I ain't going to say it either. I'm going to let y'all think about it. Because it's coming up later in this document. I'll wait till it come up. Then I'll be like, that's what I wanted y'all to say. Hopefully somebody say it in it. What do you have a right to? What do you have a right to? Fatima, you can put it in the comment section, but you can't say it.
Okay.
Put it in the comment section. Oh, I got. What do you have a right to, Morris? You have a right to face your accuser.
You have a right to counsel.
You have a right to counsel. Right. And that counsel does not have to be an attorney. It can be anyone you deem worthy to assist you in helping fight the libels.
As long as they are versed in law.
As long as they are versed in law. I would hope you would want somebody versed in law and not somebody that's just your friend. I hope you want somebody that's going to help you that knows the law to defend yourself against whatever you're being charged with. Mm-hmm. Islam. Where was that? Nisi-prius is a Latin term. Black's law states prius means first. Nius means unless. Mm-hmm. A nius-prius procedure is a procedure to which a party first agrees unless he objects. I'm going to read that again. A nius-prius procedure is a procedure by which or to which a party first agrees unless he objects. You want me to read that one more time? Okay, I won't. A rule of procedure in court is that if a party fails to object to something, then it means he agrees to it.
Yep.
A nisi-prius, a nisis procedure is a procedure to which a person has failed to object. A nisi-prius court is a court which will proceed unless a party objects. The agreement to proceed is obtained from the parties first. Now, was that a violation?
Yeah.
I think it was. Because it said you had to first object. Don't you always object with stating jurisdiction for the record? That's objecting, right? You're objecting. You're objecting by stating you're a Moorish American national not subject to the jurisdiction of this court. You're objecting. Whatever presentment they put in the record as to validate jurisdiction, which was a violation of what? 18 U.S.C. Subsection 1001 and 1002. Stating things that are false to give the presumption of jurisdiction is all. So a nisi prius court is a court which will proceed unless a party objects. Moors, y'all are always objecting. They're just trying to act like they can't hear you. Which is why you must lean them. And you must put these things on the record and you must send them to all of those other parties or other principals so they know that these individuals are violating their status as a nisi prius court. They're a nisi prius court, one, because they're instituted by statutory provisions, meaning they're holding up statutory codes and ordinances, which is a violation of the Constitution. The Constitution, they're not talking about the law, which is the Constitution. They're talking about a so-called presumption of status or presumptions of authority. So they are a nisi prius court. I don't give this nisi prius court jurisdiction. I don't submit to anything that's being said here. I object to everything. The United States Supreme Court said concerning courts of record and courts not of record. So they're a court not of record, even though they got the tapes on. They're a court of not record. The former being those which acts in judicial proceedings are enrolled or recorded for perpetual memory and testimony, and which have power to fine or imprison for contempt. Courts not of record are those of inferior dignity which have no power to confine or imprison, in which the proceedings are not enrolled and recorded. Now, do they have the power to confine or imprison? No, but they willed it. Why are they wielding it as a nisi prius court? Because you don't object to it. And you don't put that objection in writing on the court. Huh? Oh, goodness, please.
I'm dead ass.
Okay, anyway, Islam Wars, I'm here again. The sheriff has a duty to provide law enforcement of officers in all courts of record, often called bailiffs, which means guardian or steward, who are a sheriff's deputy in all courts of record. Like the sheriff's duties or deputies are to have a proper education. It is the duty of the sheriff to make sure that his deputies have a proper education. The bailiff is not in the courtroom as a private bodyguard for the judge. He is there to protect the people and the judge, who is also one of the people. He is there to keep the peace by making sure the law of the land is being adhered to and that unalienable rights are not being violated. This is the duty of every sheriff and deputy sheriff operating under that authority or that presumed authority all over the Moroccan Empire, which you think is the so-called United States, country of the United States, which is not a country, which just like we talked about earlier, pursuant to 28 U.S.C. subsection 300215A is a federal corporation, subject to the jurisdiction of the people. The people make the rules, not the other way around. If the sheriff perceives that the judge or any other elected or appointed official for that matter is breaking the law, the best way to proceed is to get an indictment before making an arrest. Absolutely, you need to get an indictment because the Constitution told you had to get an indictment by a grand jury for any criminal offense by anyone. So even if they're violating the law or even if so-called the people are violating the law, it is your responsibility to make sure you are following the Constitution as it relates to arresting anyone. Because just like the so-called administrator acting as a judge has rights as the people, so do the people have rights as the people, and so do you, sheriff or deputy sheriff, have rights. So you wouldn't want anybody offending you, so why would you offend them? So it's your duty to know the law, and if you don't know the law, sheriffs and deputy sheriffs all around the Moroccan Empire, this is why this class is being held. Because we, the people, are telling you what your responsibilities are to us, the people. Court duty. Where did I stop? Don't trust the gatekeeper because he is likely to help the judge. Judges and prosecutors are both elected because they both work for the Bar Association. They're all in cahoots. The judge, the prosecutor, the ADAs, all of them, because they all work for the same corporation. They all are licensed by the same corporation, the BAR. And it just said that. Judges and prosecutors are both elected, both officials, both bar members, both lawyers, and have a close working relationship and therefore are likely to share camaraderie. Go see the grand jury directly and secure an indictment. And the law says you have to do that before you can indict anyway or charge anybody anyway. And you want the support of your, you want the support.
Kelsey and Kim's. He said Kelsey and Kim's. What do you want?
Salmon. Give me 1 second, y'all. I'm sorry. Salmon, yams. I don't know. Coleslaw? No. I'm sorry, macaroni and cheese. No, Fatima, I don't know. Rice? I don't know. All I want is... Yes, there you go. I.S.L.A.M, y'all, I'm back. Court duties. Sheriffs are responsible for maintaining the safety and security of the court. That's why they're there. A bailiff is required to attend all court sessions, to make charges of juries. To take charge of juries whenever they are outside the courtroom, to serve court papers, to extradite prisoners, and to perform other court-related activities. Islam? Sheriffs and warrants. Now, this is the very most important part. This is the important part because sheriffs out there, as well as deputy sheriffs, all those underneath the sheriff's authority, all over the country are effectuating orders that are valid, that are invalid, and that are null and void. And that leaves every so-called sheriff and deputy sheriff open to litigation as well as the liens. We're liening you because you're violating the laws and you're violating our rights. And you're kicking us out of domiciles. You're putting us in these facilities and you don't have the lawful authority to do it because of the warrants that you're getting are not from a duly authorized individual who has the authority to give it. And they're in violation of the Constitution and they're in violation of the treaty, which you took an oath and a duty to uphold, which is why we lien you in your corporate and private capacity. So when we talk about a privilege, as a corporate, as a elected official, you have immunities from certain charges. But when you violate the Constitution that gave you that immunity, you strip away all abilities of immunity. You strip it away, which is why we can lien you, and then all of a sudden you lose everything. And you're not losing it because of what we've done. You're losing for what you failed to do. As a elected official who took an oath to the Constitution and the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, because that superseded the Constitution, and that is the law that dictates intercourse between Moors and United States citizens. And when we say citizens, we're not saying that that's your nationality and that is your status. Be clear on what a citizen means.
Go take the hose off that and bring it around to the side and plug it in.
A bailiff is required to attend all... Oh, I read that already. Perform correctly. Sheriff's warrant. Okay. Sheriffs and warrants. I'm going to go slow on this one, y'all, because this is important. Amendment 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, their body, houses, and papers and effects. That means their IDs, their nationality documents that's being seized. That means everything. That means their domiciles that's being seized, their people that's being seized, their children that's been seized. All of that is what they're talking about here. Against unreasonable search and seizures. To search means you have to have authority. To seize means you have to have authority by a duly authorized body. Shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be seized and the person or thing to be seized. Moors are not a thing. You cannot seize us. We're not a part of this Constitution as it relates to property to be seized because we're no one's property. We are foreign nationals, supported and protected by the Constitution and the treaty. You don't ever have the right to pull us in unless we've physically harmed an individual or we've killed someone. And it can't be a presumption. It has to be, you have to have actual facts, and it has to be concrete, ironclad, meaning you had at least 2 witnesses that said, I saw that man shoot that man. Or I saw that man stab that man. It can't be under any other pretenses. That's a violation of the law. According to Black's Law Dictionary, the word oath, in its broadest sense, includes all forms of attestation by which a party signifies that he or she is bound in conscience by a solemn and formal declaration or asseveration that an affidavit is true. Do I read that again? According to the Black's Law Dictionary, the word oath, in its broadest sense, includes all forms of attestation by which a party signifies that he or she is bound in conscience by a solemn and formal declaration or asseveration that an affidavit is true. No warrant, including a federal warrant, is to be served without going through the sheriff's office. You're supposed to be at all of those. You're supposed to make sure those are valid. Any warrant without a sworn affidavit and a judge's wet ink signature, not a stamp, not a copy, is not an executable warrant. A warrant, including a federal warrant, is to be served without going through. Is to be served without going through the sheriff's office. Why can't they serve these without going through you? Any warrant without a sworn affidavit and a judge's wet ink signature, not a stamp, is not an executable warrant. It is the sheriff's duty to make sure that all warrants, federal or state, served within their county passes constitutional scrutiny. IRS warrants rarely pass constitutional scrutiny. For examples, the IRS Form 4490 called Proof of Claim for Internal Revenue Service, which is an affidavit form that must be filled out and sworn to without written, which is the warrant in the wet ink signature is excludable. Why do all warrants have to go through the sheriff's office before they can be effectuated? Why? This giving you some information about territory jurisdiction. It's giving you some information about, jurisdiction. Jurisdiction. A so-called federal or state can't go into a county to effectuate a warrant without going through the sheriff's department. Why? Sheriffs have power. So too do the deputy sheriffs. A lot of power, which is why we come to you. Because you're the ones supposed to be making sure all of these bodies, all of these people within that so-called jurisdiction are abiding by the laws. Or you're all held accountable. If you're the only ones that are elected, the people entrusted you with an authority to have their best interest at heart. Not only to have their best interest, you took an oath to it. So you are automatically bound and bonded by the oaths you took. You're bound by that. And it's the people that gave you the authority. And the people are the Moors and the Moorish subjects. Ipso Jure. In their legal status. So nobody's authority supersedes the authority of a Moor. So when a Moor comes to you and says that these individuals are trying to evict you, you're the one supposed to be making sure and all those so-called departments within that so-called county are operating honorably. That is every sheriff and that is every deputy operating under the sheriff. You're not supposed to be allowing fictitious documents to come across your desk. Or when they violate people within your particular county, so-called county, they're violating you. Sheriff's offices maintain and operate county jails or other detention centers, community correctional facilities such as work release and halfway houses. Sheriffs are responsible for supervising inmates, protecting their rights, and providing food, clothing, exercise, recreation, and medical services. Y'all don't even know y'all supposed to be doing that. Y'all supposed to be doing that. Y'all not just supposed to be keeping a database of who's in there. You're supposed to be making sure the people that are in there belong there, and there are people that are there that don't belong there, get out of there. You're supposed to be making sure there's no Moors there. I guarantee you they're contacting you to let you know that they're being violated. You're not doing your duty. Before the sheriff is to accept any prisoner, because he's the one accepting the prisoners, he is to make sure that due process has been exercised. If a court sends a prisoner sentenced to be incarcerated and there was no indictment in petit jury, trial by 12 jurors, before the sentencing, the prisoner is now a victim who has been given no due process. The sheriff cannot accept that prisoner.
You don't need the sheriff to deputize.
Unfortunately, because of ignorance, county jails are filled with such prisoners. Black's law defines an infamous crime as a crime punishable by imprisonment. What'd you say, Fatima?
This guy, Amin Atusu Bey, he said the sheriffs can deputize every brother in their own neighborhood to protect them from police. No, you don't need the sheriff to deputize anyone. You deputize yourself to protect your neighborhood. You are the
You're the law.
Thank you.
The people don't need to be deputized, to be given authority by a sheriff for which they gave authority to. Oxymoron. Like, you gave the authority to the sheriff. You don't need now authority by the sheriff to protect or support your community. All you need is like-minded Moors who are competent in the laws, who are calm and clear-headed, who are not, militant, let me say that in the best way I can, to come together to support and defend each other. But you do this by organizing, going to the sheriff's departments and letting them know what you'll be doing, and that you're there to assist with constitutional principles. But Moors, just like I told y'all from the jump, every sheriff's department and office has to be leaned so they can stop doing their corporate business, which is what right now is funding them, which is why they're doing it. Amendment 5. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury. Moors are in these facilities who've declared for infamous crimes without no indictments. Amendment 6. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury. The sheriff cannot accept any prisoner that were tried in courts not of record, because they are nisi prius courts and do not have the power to fine and incarcerate. But you're doing this. So you'll be held for contempt. You'll be held for human trafficking. You'll be held for kidnapping. Because when you have effectuated an unlawful warrant and seizure, you're violating people's rights. So you're kidnapping them. Courts not of record are those of inferior dignity, which have no power to fine or confine or imprison, in which the proceedings are not enrolled or recorded. Sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer of the county. So like I said, you're over all of the policy enforcers. So why are you doing... The sheriff is the chief executive and administrative officers of the county, being chosen by popular election. His principal duties are in aid of the criminal courts and civil courts of record. So why is he assisting courts not of record, nisi prius courts, courts that are effectuating statutes that go against the Constitution? So how are you taking the oath to the Constitution, but then you're violating the oath you took by imprisoning people by color of law statutes?
Girl. He don't know what he's doing.
His principal duties are in aid of the criminal courts in civil courts of record, such as serving process, summoning jurors, executing judgments, holding judicial sales, and the like. He is also the chief conservator of the peace within his territorial jurisdiction. When used in statutes, the term may include a deputy sheriff. Justice Scalia.
Yeah.
I know. I knew they was going to do that. We both knew they was going to do that. We knew that. It ain't play. We can't play Moorish science.
You can't.
You got to actually be about Moorish science and know what you're talking about, and not do stuff. He, out of fear, he ran. Of course,
Out of fear, he ran.
He should have dealt with that
at the house, on the side of the road.
Yes, his fear got him in that.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's see if his knowledge will get him out.
It ain't.
Justice Scalia, writing for the majority in 97 decision, stated that the states are not subject to federal direction, and that the U.S. Congress only has discrete and enumerated powers, and that federal impotency was rendered expressed by the 10th Amendment. The sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer of the county, and also proclaimed that the states retain an insoluble sovereignty. Scalia went on further in this landmark case, in which town sheriffs headed the feds off at the pass and sent them on their way. Scalia, in his infinite obligation to the Constitution, took this entire ruling to the 10th power when he said, "The Constitution protects us from our own best interests, so that we may resist the temptation to concentrate power in one location as an expedient solution to the crisis of the day." Obviously, the sheriff is the people's last line of defense against a government going rogue. Not really. Law enforcement. A sheriff always has the power to make arrests within his or her own county. Some states extend this authority to adjacent counties or to the entire state. Many sheriff officers also perform routine patrol functions such as traffic control, accident investigations, and transportation of prisoners. Larger departments may perform criminal investigations, and some, usually larger sheriff's offices, command an air patrol or mounted patrol or a marine patrol, depending on how big the county is. Sheriffs still enlist the aid of the citizens. The National Neighbor Watch program, sponsored by the National Sheriff's Association, allows citizens and all enforcement officers to cooperate in keeping community safe. This is why the new mission of the Indian Sheriff's Association and their slogan, "The Building Communities of Trust in all 92 Indian countries." And remember, more, as I posted earlier this week, an article that Fatima found, which it talked about, what did that article talk about? What? I know you can't find it real quick.
Hold on.
No, it was an article that just talked about Indian. We'll find it and post it. As the sheriff's law enforcement duties become more extensive and complex, because you should be doing more than what you're doing, new career opportunities exist. So you know what those opportunities are. I'm going to highlight that. I'm just going to get to the real nitty-gritty stuff, because we're going to end this broadcast at 8 o'clock in 20 minutes. Governments derive their just power from the consent of the people, wherein we ordained and established the following. And this is the preamble to the Constitution. Islam. And this is an answer to a more that talked about, do we need to go to the sheriff's department to get authority or deputize so we have authority? You already have authority. You're the people. You need to know that you have authority and start wielding it. An unanimous or unanimous ruling from the Supreme Court of the United States, they say SCOTUS, affirms authority of Native American tribal governments and police forces. Do I gotta read the rest?
That should be enough.
That should be enough. A unanimous ruling from the Supreme Court of the United States affirms, means they say yes, to the authority of Native American tribal governments and police forces. Native means you're indigenous to the land. Tribe is the family. or the
our
Klan.
Own government and our own police force.
Own government, own police force. Yes. You already have that authority. Organize more has been trying to tell you that for like 3 years. I don't know what's your problem.
They scared.
I know they are, but I ain't want to say that on the public platform. So, anyway. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Preamble to the Constitution for the United States of America. Therefore, by the powers vested in the people, by the government, we the people did ordain and establish vested powers to our government servants who are bound by the chains of the Constitution through their oaths. Bonded. To the following 6 ends. Form a more perfect union, establish justice, instill domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. No legislation is to be passed that does not, in the end, serve one or more of the aforesaid 6 ends. Any legislation to the contrary is null and void. All legislation to the contrary is null and void. And the sheriff is bound to treat it as such under the following general rule. General rule is that an unconstitutional statute, though having the form and name of law, is in reality no law, but is wholly void and ineffective for any purpose, since its unconstitutionality dates from its time of enactment. In legal contemplation, it is inoperative as if it had never been passed. Since an unconstitutional law is void, the general principles follow that it imposes no duties, confers no rights, creates no office, bestows no power or authority on anyone, affords no protection, and justifies no acts performed under it. A void act cannot be legally consistent with a valid one. An unconstitutional law cannot operate to supersede any existing law. Indeed, insofar as a status runs counter to the fundamental laws of the land, the Constitution, it is superseded thereby. No one is bound to obey an unconstitutional law, and no courts are bound to enforce it. So if you're enforcing unconstitutional laws that are statutes, codes, and ordinances, you are under a nisi prius court with no authority. All laws, rules, and practices which are repugnant to the Constitution are null and void. That's Marbury versus Madison. Where rights secured by the Constitution are involved, there can be no rule making or legislation which will abrogate them. Miranda versus Arizona. Statutes which would deprive a citizen of the rights of person or property without a regular trial, according to the course and usage of common law, would not be the law of the land. That's Hope versus Henderson. I just gave you stare decisis cases. Islam? Any sheriff unable to understand and enforce the general rule violates his oath of office in wars against the God, government ordinances and departments, and the people. For the sheriff to correct this error, there are only 2 choices. Study and show themselves approved by your oath, or resign your office as sheriff. It is also the duty of every sheriff to train their deputies in the law of the land. This is the very purpose of this book, to train up our sheriffs and deputies in the way they should conduct themselves and not depart from them. It has become agonizingly obvious through communicating with many sheriffs and their deputies across the nation that the majority of them are not properly educated and do not understand their oaths of authority. Their oaths or authority. Of course they don't. Of course. But here's the reality. Do you have a right to use that as a defense? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You don't have a right to use that as a defense.
You see that?
I didn't see anything. You have to tell me because I'm reading.
Miko
Well, is it worth mentioning?
Not really.
Okay, so we can see. I'm not going to answer comments that don't make no sense. It's not my job here to. I don't know. What did he say? Just read.
I'll show you.
Which one?
Miko.
Miko?
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute. What? Fear. I'm going to tell you what fear means. False education appearing real. Moors, the fears you have are because you're ignorant of reality. And because we allowed the magic box, which is the television, as well as the institutions of so-called higher learning that we've gone to give us that sense of fear that you have. Knowledge nullifies all of that presumption that you may have. You should not have any fear. You should be standing up not only for yourself, you should be standing up for the babies that you've created. You should be standing for the women and the men that you sleep next to that rely upon you for security and protection. How can you sit here and say you are fearful? It's one thing to say it in your mind.
No, we're fear. No.
It's another thing to say it out loud. The only way you will come from under the spell of fear, because it's a spell, is knowledge. That is your armor. That is your shield. That is your scimitar. Because you don't have to have a gun. You don't have to have an AK, 57, 47, 45, whatever the heck that is. You don't have to have any of that. What is your power is here. And you're not going to recognize or appreciate that until you get knowledge here, which is the purpose of this platform. This platform is for Moors and Moorish subjects to recognize we are in this fight together. We've allowed our domiciles, we allowed our empire to get so far out of law that it is our responsibility to start gaining knowledge as to what it is that we need to learn. And if you love yourself, if you love your children, if you love your family, your clans that you claim to love, that so-called fear will dissipate because it's serious. What you're up against is serious. No matter if you yourself have not encountered any resistance because you've been a very compliant slave, because that's what you've been. You have to, Moors, you're going to have to decide for yourself if you're going to live in fear or live in knowledge. It's a choice.
Done that. Been there and done that.
Have a choice, Moors. You can stay on the sidelines and let us all strong, fearless Moors do the work. But Moors, overstand, there's going to be some situations where we ain't going to be able to come and run to save you. Everything we're doing is the due diligence, the due process, giving everybody. I love Moors and Moorish subjects. I love Asiatics as well as Albions. I love all of y'all. Y'all want to act crazy? I'm going to put the law on you. I ain't going to come do nothing. All I'm going to do is hold you accountable by filling out these affidavit of facts, letting you know you've injured me, letting you know you violated me. And all you have to do to absolve yourself of all of that is stop. Stop. Yeah. They rule by ignorance, not fear.
That's right.
Overstand. Fear is ignorance. You would not have these fears if you were not ignorant to reality. And I'm talking about to your culture that you lost. Now you found it. Your culture is what's going to strengthen you. Your people is what's going to strengthen you. Surrounding yourself by like-minded individuals and staying away from those Negro, colored, and black people for a little while. Mm-hmm. So you get strong. Because if you can't straddle the fence. It's impossible. You will cut yourself in half.
Thank you. Islam.
And when you cut yourself in half, what happens? You're dead. Try next time. This place, we are in the fight for ourselves, Moors. If you don't recognize that, that's why this platform is here, for you to recognize that. Right now, for a lot of you, somebody else is controlling you. Somebody else is controlling you by everything you do, and you know you're being controlled because you live in fear. You ain't supposed to live in fear. You're not supposed to be fear. Let me tell you, I was watching a movie, and one of the village people was in there, and he had fear. And it was like, you got to leave. You got to take that away before you infect the entire community. Right. We ain't play that game because fear is not something that's supposed to dwell in you. So if you got fear, you living in sin.
There you go.
And why are you living in sin? Because you're ignorant. And you ain't supposed to be ignorant. You ain't supposed to not know who you are. You ain't supposed to be operating as a Negro, colored, and black. Or you white people, you Albions, you ain't supposed to be operating as white people. You all are ignorant. And you're all living in fear, regardless of what you may think you're living. You think you're powerful. If you're powerful, you wouldn't need to come to my house with a gun and 20 people.
There you go.
If you're powerful, you come in my house by yourself. If you was powerful. You better get rid of that fear. You better not come over here with it, because I'm going to smack you with it. And I'm seeing all this on this platform to piss you fearful people off. You don't belong here. Go watch your movies that gave you that fear and stay in there. This fight is for the fearless. If all you can do to support is donate, just donate. We'll accept your donations while we do this work. Because this is 75 years in the coming. They knew this was coming 75 years ago, Moors. They knew it.
They knew it.
That's why they did everything. That's why crack came, annihilated y'all off the chessboard. That's why now all of a sudden every Albion is with an Asiatic on TV. They would never show Asiatics and Albions together. That's a violation of the Christian black codes. Why are they showing that, Moors? Why are they sitting here acting like they cool with it today? And I'm talking today because 2 years ago, they wasn't showing that 2 years ago. They wasn't showing an Asiatic and an Albion woman, an Asiatic woman and an Albion son. They wasn't showing that. They were showing it the other way. Now, all of a sudden, every Asiatic woman want to be with an Albion on TV. What they trying to tell you, more that you ain't picking up on. So we don't live in fear. And if you're living in fear, you need to exercise yourself from that by watching these classes, gaining knowledge.
Yes. Study to show yourself.
Study to show yourself approved. And I'm going to say it to you right. You got that fear from your mama. Your mama gave it to you. You want to be mad at her. Fix the sin your mom put you in. Fix the sin your mother put you in. And I'm going to just say that for the record. But I love you, Moors. I do this platform so you will remove that sin that you're in. That fear. That scariness that you're in because it's sin. You ain't supposed to be fearful. You're supposed to be fearless. Anyway, I love you. Just listen, gain knowledge, and be your best you. Whatever that is. Where was I at?
Oh, no.
Telling you, baby. Let me tell you. We got love for you babies over here. We got love for you.
We ain't doing this. We ain't staying up, pulling stuff from different platforms, pulling stuff from off the internet. We're not studying for no reason.
It's long.
We're giving it to you raw.
Raw.
Yes, I might be behind the camera, but guess what? I put in my work.
Oh my God, did
so,
she? Let me tell you.
Fearless. This is me.
Fearless.
I've been doing this since early 2000.
It's long. Let me tell you.
I'm going to say it. I'm sorry. Early 90s.
It's long.
Go back there.
Fatima Yasmin El Basir Bey and her consort, Tahir. Always
20 plus years.
Let me tell you.
This movement.
The knowledge in this domicile is fierce. We can't annihilate y'all with too much. You understand? We got to give it to you little by little. And understand, I missed y'all for the past, 3-4 weeks that I haven't been on the social platform because I've been getting the website done. As well as nationalizing and all this other stuff that I've been doing. I've been doing a lot. We've been doing a lot. And the stuff that's behind the scenes, we really can't tell you because, like I said, we don't want you to be injured. We want to make sure things is done. It is our responsibility to put all. That's why we're doing the sheriff's handbook, so we can let you know what's coming next or what's on its way, what's already done. It's already been done.
Shit.
Every sheriff, every deputy sheriff, it is your responsibility to know the laws, to enforce the laws, to protect the people. It is every so-called policy enforcer's responsibility to stop doing exactly what it is they're doing. Mm-hmm. So if y'all operations and y'all only source of funding was through violating the Moors, you better figure something else out. I don't know what to tell you. That was the wrong course of business to be in.
Anytime I go to a courtroom and sit in a courtroom on their court and watch them degrade our people and let the Albions go for 4 hours, gaining information, gaining power, then speaking to the administrator afterwards, I got some shit with me. I ain't fearless.
Fearful.
Fearful, thank you. I'm fearless.
And let me tell you, I've seen it too. How Asiatics get railroaded. And you're getting railroaded because of your ignorance. The reasons why they ain't messing with those Albions when they come into those tribunals is because they got family members that know some stuff. And they don't know which ones got family members that might know some stuff. So they don't. And what they need them for? You the money? You the bank? The Asiatics is the bank, which is why they keep you in there forever. Try to keep you in there forever.
Try to sell you a cockabane store.
And the only ambiance that's in theirs is the ones that don't nobody want. All substance abusers and, violators of people. The ones that actually probably should be there. Who've actually harmed and violated somebody. But for you Moors, y'all there for nothing. What? I don't even want to get into it. I'm going to get back to the sheriff's manual because that's what we're supposed to be talking about. And you don't have anything to apologize, Miko. Miko, you have nothing to apologize for. Just gain the knowledge, study, and show yourself approved. Period, point blank. Nothing to apologize for. We all at one point were where you are. We didn't make excuses. We just sat our little butts down and studied. That's all we did. Crying, all that. I'm going to be honest. Crying, all that.
In
pain, all that. Any sheriff any sheriff unable to understand and enforce the general rule violates his oath of office. And wars again. I already read that, didn't I? Okay, so yes, his two options are study and start enforcing the law, or to resign. That is your two options. Study or resign. It is also the duty of every sheriff to train their deputies in the law of the land. So not only you study, everybody underneath you should be studying this manual. Period, point blank. At the very least. As well as the website. The Moorish American Consulate website. It is your responsibility to go to that website and know what you're supposed to be doing. And know which corporations have been leaned that are... that are in violation. So you know. This is the very purpose of this book, to train up our sheriffs and deputies in the way they should conduct themselves and not depart from it. It is also becoming agonizingly obvious through communicating with many sheriffs and other deputies across the nation that the majority of them are not properly educated and do not understand their oaths and authority.
There you go.
And isn't that funny? Because when you sit here, like when I used to get a JOB, I used to read the policies and procedures manual. Because you all get it, you sign off on it. We all sign off on our responsibilities when we get, assume specific positions. We all assume a responsibility based on what we signed, right? As a job description, as duties and procedures. So nobody has an excuse for violations because you know the law. You know what you're supposed to know. You're at least supposed to know the Constitution. You took a duty and an oath to it. How are you going to take a duty and an oath to something you don't know what you took a duty and an oath to, and then when you get my lien, you get mad at me? How are you mad at me? You're the one that violated the law. Violated me. But you're mad at me. That doesn't make any sense to me. Law. The law of the land. that which is laid down, ordained, and established. United States Constitution, Article 6. This is key. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme laws of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary or notwithstanding. And that's all in one word, notwithstanding. Maybe because you read it too fast, you don't understand what it means. Notwithstanding. Null and void.
Everything.
In conclusion, law is all about the securing of unalienable rights. We do not need the PhD to know and understand the law. We need not yield our understanding to statutory lawyers, aka bar attorneys, whose oath and duty is to that specific court or municipality that just charged you with a violation.
That's right.
The Bible tells us that lawyers reject counsel of God.
And that's so true, because that's what they did to us.
They reject it. They lay upon men grievances, burdens, and take away the key of judgment.
There you go.
I'm going to say it again. They lay upon men grievances, burdens, and take away the key of knowledge. So they know the knowledge, they know the law, but they hold it against you.
And they tell you stuff like, we don't have to back what you say is law.
Right.
That's what they tell us.
Yeah, they say we don't consent, or we don't agree, or we don't believe what you're talking about. I'm like, it ain't a belief system. It's written in the laws. It's written in everything that you took an oath to. And if you look, the Bible tells us that God, government ordinances and departments, has written his laws into the hearts of all men. So you already know right from wrong. It's in your heart.
Ugh.
We the people can know right from wrong. I just said that, right? We do not need legislators and lawyers to tell us this is precisely why we the people never gave our servant legislator authority to write statutes that govern our behavior. Nor did we give judges and prosecutors the authority to indict or judge we the people. That authority was reserved to ourselves via untamed juries with the power of nullification. This is why they got to get a grand jury to indict. They got to get permission from the people to indict. Because if they were able to indict, if they were able to indict on their own, everybody be in jail, and everybody is in jail right now because they think they got that right. Because the people are not holding them accountable. Because they're ignorant of the law. And then I don't want to hear the excuse of this nonsense. Oh, we didn't learn it in school. Your mama was supposed to teach you it. She didn't. And she didn't because she wanted, in my opinion, you to be safe. Mommy wanted you to be safe. So she didn't tell you a lot of stuff that and a lot of times because she didn't know. But for the most part, she didn't want you to be rebelling against this specific paradigm because she was fearful you was going to lose your life. So she didn't tell you what you needed to know. I'm talking about a couple generations back, y'all. I ain't talking about the mothers today because a lot of the mothers today just don't know. Because the mothers from the past held this information of your status, of your nativity. They held it against you. They held it from you in fear of you dying. So they didn't tell you. And that's the burden they got to bear. Because they didn't tell you. Common law is built upon the logic and reason through maxims and privileges. Maxims are self-evident truths such as all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. For every injury, there must be a remedy. And for there to be a crime, there must be an injured party. Principles are a state of mind that always needs to be considered, such as honor, trust, and mercy. Likewise, we need not yield our trust in understanding law to bar attorneys. They're against you. Thus, they submit you to a jurisdiction that's foreign to you and that has all your brothers and sisters in jail right now because they submitted to that jurisdiction. Thomas Jefferson told us this. Laws are made for men of ordinary understanding and should therefore be construed by the ordinary rules of common sense. So it's supposed to be common and it's supposed to be very, very basic for the average man to understand. Their meaning is not to be sought for in metaphysical subtleties, which may make any meaning everything and nothing at pleasure. The purpose of a written constitution is entirely defeated if, in interpreting it as the legal document, its provisions are manipulated and worked around so that the document means whatever the manipulator wishes it to mean. It's supposed to be very generic and basic. So if you have the right to counsel, you have the right to counsel. If you have the right to face your accuser, you have the right to face your accuser. If you have the right to, they have to get an indictment for any criminal prosecutions. They have to get an indictment for any criminal prosecutions. It is basic for anybody to understand, so nobody has a justification for not knowing what they're talking about. I don't get it. It's very simple. It's very basic. And if we were getting this education in the universities and the colleges, if you were given this basic information, just understand why you haven't been given this basic information in elementary school, secondary, or third, if that's what they call it. Why you ain't get it? Jefferson recognized this danger and spoke out constantly for careful adherence to the Constitution as written, with changes to be made by amendments, not to torture or twist interpretations of the text. A rule of thumb concerning the constitutionality of any legislation or interpretations of the Constitution is to ask if the conclusion violates any of the unalienable rights, and if it does, it's null and void. It's very simple, y'all. Law is simple. We try to make it complicated. Let's see. We're at 8 o'clock. How far more? How much farther shall I go? I don't know. I think I'm going to go all the way up to statutes. What? I'm gonna just read this and then we're gonna go soon. I know everybody's jumping off. I get it. Got things to do. Gotta go eat. The laws of nature and of nature's God. The judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity. U.S. Constitution, Article 3, Section 2. The law of nature and the laws of God is called natural law or common law. So called because the law is common unto all men, and no one can escape its judgment, which will be applied either in true courts of justice or on the last day. According to Black's Law 4th edition, the key phrase in law means in the intentment or contemplation of the law, existing in law, or by force of law. It is in fact actual, real, or distinguished from implied or inferred. Philosophically, it seems more correct to say that the word land means in law, as in the vernacular, the soil. The term law may be used interchangeably with property. It may include anything that may be classified as real estate or real property. Law of the land lifted from Magna Carta means due process. Due process and owing to all concerned, sometimes called the path of the law. Therein, the constitutional phrase law of the land, property, for it is God who created all things for his pleasure and said, the world is mine, and all men are creators. Ooh. And all men are mine. Yep, mommy did that. All souls are mine, and all gold and silver is mine. We the people and all of the creation are God's property. God is the lawgiver and the judge, who gave us the law of liberty via unalienable rights, whereby making us free. And we the people, through the jury, grand and petite, sit as the tribunal of the king's bench to exercise the law of the land, and no man by way of legislation or decree can take we the people, liberty without consequences. Black's Law states that the phrase at law is used to point out that a thing is to be done according to the course of common law. It is distinguished from a proceeding in equity. Law is therefore which is laid down, ordained, or established. Thomas Jefferson was a student of blah, blah, blah. I don't really want to read too much about Thomas Jefferson. We only care about the law. That's all we really care about. Islam. So we're going to go to legislative law invested in law. Legislative law is vested in law. Legislative law is vested in law. Neither the United States Congress nor any state Congress has the authority to write statutes that control people's behavior. I'm going to say that again. Neither the United States Congress nor any state Congress has the authority to write statutes that control people's behavior. It's up to the people to control their own behavior, and if they injure someone, the common law has remedies. vested authority in our legislator is found in Article 1, Section 8. Congress absolutely has no authority to legislate outside of Article 1, Section 8. Does anybody know what Article 1, Section 8 says? Do I have to go read it? You can go find it and be with me on the website. Like I said, you go to the website, you go to the home page. That's where all the supreme laws of the land are currently, for you to be well versed in them. And every time I do class, I will tell you where to go download the documents to stop sending me emails. Because y'all send way too many emails. Y'all ask for way too many things via email. Everything that you ask for me via email is now located on the website, www.moorishamericanconflict.org. So get it there and ignore the email you sent me, because I'm going to ignore the email you sent me requesting documents that are now located on the website, because I'm trying to take away some responsibility from me and give it to you. Islam. Plus, the old website still had some things that needed to be tweaked. Therefore, I was supporting you with giving you documents for nationality and instructions and where to mail the documents. Now the website has been updated, so therefore go there for all your documents. So you don't have to wait for me to answer your email. You can go to the website. Islam, the website for nationality, the website for property possessions, public notifications. If you want your documents to be published on the website for notification, please submit those PDF. Don't mail me. If you feel like mailing me, please do it. But I would prefer you to send me the PDF once it's done, don't be sending me no nonsense, Moors. I'm going to tell you now, because I got to call you, I'm going to call you out. Just know I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. But anyway, you go to the home page, and then you stroll down to Supreme Laws of the Land, and then you go find the Constitution. So the Constitution is on number 7. This is number 7. So you would plop into the Constitution. It's going to come up, and then we can go right to Article what? 1, Section 8. Article 1, Section 8. Sometimes the writing is so small, you got to ask them to go a little bigger. And then we're going to go down to the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8. Let's see if we can find it fast, because I don't be wanting to take time or dead airspace. You know, we get dead airspace, and I kind of like, the Congress shall have power. The Congress shall have power. The Congress shall have power. It's under Section 8. I'm almost sure that I am I'm going to make sure I'm in Section 1. Article 1. I am in Section Article 1. So let me make sure that I ain't reading the wrong thing. Islam. Article 1, Section 8 says what? The Congress shall have powers. We're talking commercial agreement, y'all. I'm going to keep saying that for the record. To lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and exercises. To pay the debts and to provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. So there shouldn't be no fluctuations. To borrow money on the credit of the United States. To regulate commerce with foreign nations among the several states and with the Indian tribes. I'm talking too fast?
Yes, you are.
It's all Moors. You know, I'm trying to get done. Anyway, to establish a uniform rule of naturalization, Moors. We talked about that in Dred Scott. Congress. And uniform laws of the subject of bankruptcy throughout the United States. I'm going to talk a little slower so y'all can stay with me. Is that good for you? I'm going to be like what was that thing that was stamping? I'm going to be like the dude. What was that? The sloth that was stamping. I love the sloth that was stamping. He was like that. Where's the stamper? He was like this, y'all. He was like this, y'all. The sloth was like this, y'all. So stupid. And I posted, what did I post to this? I was like, this is Moors. This is Moors where they do nationality.
Turn that light off.
Like the sloth. I'm gonna do it. That sloth had me dying, because I'll be like, people be like that at the DMV. I'm just gonna say it. They be like weird. Anyway, I'm getting back to what I was saying. The powers of the Congress to establish uniform rules of naturalization. And then they have a whole lot of other stuff that's in here. So I posted the actual source, not everybody's recreation of the laws. I got them right out the public statutes at large, so people know that they came from the actual law that people have to follow. Yeah, to coin money.
Yeah, we ain't trying to get over on nobody by leading them the wrong way.
Islam. To coin money, regulate the value thereof in the foreign coin, in the fixed the standards of weights and measures, to provide for the punishment of counterfeiting the securities and current coins of the United States, to establish post offices and postal roads. That's why you're subject to the judicial system at the Department of Justice, which says that what? Nationality identification card supersedes all other so-called cards. Anyway, but I digress. To promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive rights to their respective writings and discoveries, to constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. That's also in Article 3, y'all. To define and punish piracy and felonies committed on the high seas and offenses against the law of nations, to declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisals, to make rules concerning captures on land and water, to raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to the use shall be for a longer term than 2 years, to provide and maintain a navy, to make to make rules for the government and regulations of the land and naval forces, to provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurgents and invasions, to provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia, and for governing such parts of them as may be employed in the service of the United States, servicing the states respectfully, the appropriation or the appointments of the officers, and the authority of training the militia according to the disciplines prescribed by Congress, to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 square miles, as may be succession of particular states in the acceptance of Congress become the seat of the government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be, for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings, and to make laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers and all other powers vested by the Constitution and the government of the United States, or in any department or officers thereof. Now that's a funny one, because they say to make laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers, but they can't go outside of their already authority, meaning they can't violate anything that is notwithstanding. So it has to be within the parameters of the Constitution. So they are very controlled, is what I'm trying to say. They're controlled to not go outside of this. So they can't go outside of this to support this, is what I'm saying. Islam? The real law. The common law is the real law, the supreme law of the land. The codes, rules, regulations, policies, and statutes are not the law.
Read that again, please.
Okay. The real law. The common law is the real law. The supreme law of the land, the codes, rules, regulations, policy, and statutes are not the law. Self versus Ray.
Yes, ma'am.
Legislative statutes enforced upon the people in the name of law are a fraud. I'm going to read that again. Legislative statutes enforced upon the people in the name of law are a fraud. They have no authority and are without mercy. Justice without mercy is godless and therefore repugnant to our United States Constitution. Lawmakers were given authority by the people to legislate codes and rules and regulations and statutes, which are policies, procedures, and laws to control the behavior of bureaucrats and elected and appointed officials, municipalities, and agencies while you're in office. I'm going to read that again, because that was the part I was hoping I would get to before the end of this broadcast. Legislative statutes enforced upon the people in the name of laws are fraud. They have no authority and are without no mercy. Justice without mercy is godless and therefore repugnant to the United States Constitution. And I'm going to read this slow like the sloth. Lawmakers were given authority by the people to regulate codes, statutes, rules, regulations, which are policies and procedures in law to control the behavior of bureaucrats, elected and appointed officials, municipalities, and agencies. However, they were never given authority to control the behaviors of the people, as we read in the Supreme Court case decision. All laws, rules, and practices which are repugnant to the Constitution are null and void. Marbury versus Madison. Legislators simply do not have the authority to make rules. They don't have the authority to make rules. Where rights secured by the Constitution are involved, there can be no rule making or legislation which abrogates them either. So here's the question. Even though they said that these are policies and procedures for elected officials, do they have the right to create those sanctions even on an elected official?
No.
Yeah. Even though you accept an office of responsibility under the so-called legislative branch, you still have unalienable rights that no one can violate even when you're in office. Do you understand? So that was not even right. They created policies and procedures. They would like people who are elected within their so-called offices to control their behavior, to make sure you don't do anything that would damage the reputation of the so-called office or authority. So that's probably why they created them. However, you still have laws that supersede those. That's just suggestions. Let's just say codes and statutes are suggestions on harmony, but they're not laws. Because legislators simply do not have the authority to make rules.
They sure enough don't.
Where rights are secured by the Constitution are involved, there can be no rule making or legislation which abrogates them. God breaks down the law as followed. I ain't going to read no Bible stuff. Y'all can read that later. Islam? It does not become a crime punishable by man until your words and deeds are expressed in actions injuring another. Shall I read that again?
Yes.
Okay. Although it is a sin punishable only by the God of the universe to break a commandment to love in your mind, words, and deeds, it does not become a crime punishable by man until your words and deeds are expressed in actions injuring another. So if I think I want to kill somebody, I might be offending God.
There you go.
And I got to deal with that when I leave. But
sometimes it comes right back at you.
Sometimes it does come right back at you. So mind your thoughts. I try to do that, but sometimes I'm even guilty of it. That's just so you know. Here. Sometimes I am. Because a lot of you Negro, colored, and black and white people be acting crazy. But anyway, I digress. So the thought doesn't become a crime punishable by law until it's an action. Until it has to be acted upon. Islam? Legislators do not have the authority to impose a fine, license, or make a right a crime. Islam. And then we got statutes, and I think, shall we end there for part one of this? I think so, because the next section is talking about a whole bunch of statutes and a whole bunch of laws. And then this will give me time by the next time I do the class to have all of these things uploaded, as well as this document uploaded.
I thought it was already on there.
This is not necessarily on there because I didn't put it on there yet, but I'm going to upload this video to the page, and then I'm going to put it underneath it so people can read alongside. Islam, I love you. And that was a great class. At first, I thought it was going to be a little shaky, but it was a great class. And if there are no questions before we end this broadcast, pax et more. So I'll give you a couple of seconds in case you want to ask a question. Don't send me no email. Let me stop.
Yes, there's a brother that's going to send you an email. He had a question inside. His name is, his appellation is Wayne Bay. Wayne? Yes.
Oh, Wayne Bay always sends me emails.
Yeah, so he has a very important question. So I took his appellation down so we can find him afterwards.
Okay, Wayne Bay. All right. Okay. So if there's no other questions, I mean, we can end the broadcast. I thought it was a great broadcast, and I wanted to do this so bad. Are you still doing nationality cards? Absolutely. You can go get the order form on the website under nationality.
And send it in.
Then send it in. But like I said, everything is on the website. You don't have to send me an email for documents anymore. They're all on the website. You just got to start navigating it again. I will be doing a class on how to navigate the website, but I don't think you need to because it is very that straightforward, but I will do it anyway. Islam, Derek Moody. Islam, thank you. Pax et more. Peace and love. I will upload this on my YouTube channel as well as upload it on the website under the class section, video class sections under the erudite lessons, as well as, well, you already got it on Facebook. So Islam, y'all. Pax et more. There's no questions. We will end this broadcast with the Moorish prayer. Fatima, you want to do the Moorish prayer?
No, I do not.
She said no. Oh.
You can do it.
The Moorish prayer. Do I have it on the website? Let me see if I put it up there. On the website? I know I had it. I don't think I put that on the website yet.
You should have. I approve.
Oh, Islam. I didn't know I put it. Thank you. Islam. So you do 2 on the left, 5 on the right. So it's 2 on the left, 5 on the right, and it is Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Jure. Amin. Pax et more. Peace and love. I love you. Have a great night and happy shadow hour. Peace and love.